Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and we are bringing back one of my favorite series where I react to your absolutely scorching hot takes that you send over to me on my Instagram, MV Hockey. Could be about a team, a player, the draft, pending free agents, trades. It's about everything heading into next season, and I hear you out. I let you know if you're kind of cooking with your idea, with your hot take, or if, in my opinion, you're absolutely out of your mind. Thank you to everybody that sent those in over on my Instagram. Again, go follow so you can be involved in this. Let's get into it. Up first from Fogus. Detroit finishes bottom 5. I am like the resident Detroit hater on hockey YouTube. I'm not quite ready to go bottom 5, but yeah, I think it is somewhat possible, especially when you consider in the Eastern Conference, Pittsburgh's obviously heading towards the rebuild, but like besides that, everybody in the Eastern Conference is trying to win right now. Even my New York Islanders have not like really started to strip it down. So would I be shocked if they finish 8th in the Atlantic? I think the Boston Bruins are going to bounce back. So someone has to be bad in the Eastern Conference. And even last year, 76 points. There was 3 teams tied with 76 points for the 4th worst team in the NHL. So could I see Detroit potentially being in the high 70s? It's not out of the realm of possibility. I think last year they were only like 82 points or something like that. So yeah, it's possible. I wouldn't bet on it. But yeah, Detroit still has some sizable holes within that defense core, assuming Axel Sandin-Pellikka is not amazing right out of the gate. On top of the fact that John Gibson, although he was very good last year, still is a pretty big wild card. So yeah, there is a reality where Detroit finishes bottom 5. And if that is true, Steve Yzerman's gone. Todd McClellan's most likely gone. Heads will definitely roll if they take a step back yet again in the Yzer plan after almost making it in 2024. But yeah, interesting hot take with that. I'm sure my Red Wings fans are going to love that. Next up from Danny Parsons, the Kings will not fall off. Their offseason moves weren't that bad. I think that they're going to fall off. The problem is the Pacific Division's so fucking bad that the Vancouver Canucks or the Anaheim Ducks will have to catch them in terms of making a playoff spot. I don't expect them to be a 105-point team when you get rid of Gavrikov, when you get rid of Jordan Spence, and you bring in Cody Ceci and Brian Dumoulin at the exact same goddamn cap hit. But I think that there's still probably a mid-90s point team, which will probably get you in the Pacific Division. But yeah, I think that first off, the offseason moves were kind of bad. And also there's sizable age risk with this LA Kings team when looking at Drew Doughty, Anze Kopitar, and Darcy Kemper. Their number 1 center, their number 1 defenseman, and their number 1 goaltender are all in their mid-30s and could potentially fall off. So yeah, if they were in the Central Division, I'd probably say the fall-off is going to be huge. They're not making the playoffs. But because they're in the Pacific, yeah, they easily could have put up like 98 points and easily cruise to a playoff spot next season. Next up from my guy LeBlanc James, Devils missed the playoffs and Keefe is fired. And yeah, I feel like people forget that the Devils had 91 points last year. They were tied with the Montreal Canadiens in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, they had some injuries at the end of the season, but can we rely on the New Jersey Devils to stay healthy? Like, that's been the thing for the last couple of years. Like, you can say in theory, yeah, if they're healthy, but they have not been healthy most seasons throughout the Jack Hughes era in New Jersey. So yeah, if they missed the playoffs, do I think Keefe would get fired? It depends how much they missed the playoffs. Like if it was a shit show, if it was injuries that were the result of them missing the playoffs, I don't know if Keefe would get fired. But if they are healthy and miss the playoffs, then yeah, it might be time. Well, not time. He's only been on the job for a year at this point. But yeah, Sheldon Keefe might have to go. New Jersey, I think if they're healthy, will make it, though, but that's a big if. Next up from Thomas Marsan, Lightning miss the playoffs. And yeah, I think the Lightning are very much a high ceiling, somewhat low floor, just because similarly as I talked about the LA Kings, their guys are starting to get old. Like, I know that they haven't really shown a ton of age regression. Like, Ryan McDonough's still playing elite hockey at 35 years old. But yeah, he's like 35, going to be turning 36. Hedman's like 34. Vasilevsky's 31 or 32. Kucherov's 32. So if all of those guys, I'm not saying they're all going to fall off at once, but if they take a 5 to 10% regression, that could be dangerous for the Tampa Bay Lightning, especially when you have teams like the Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens that are very young and are probably only going to take steps forward. So yeah, well, Montreal we'll talk about probably later in one of these. But yeah, there's a lot of competition, as I mentioned, with the Detroit Red Wings for the Atlantic. So it's possible. I don't think that they're going to miss the playoffs, but among that top upper echelon of like them, Carolina, Toronto, and Florida, I'd probably say that they're the most likely to miss the playoffs, but I have all of them making the playoffs. Next up, Connor Martin, 6'5", Leafs win the cup without Marner. And yeah, I think you can make a strong argument that losing Marner and getting the 3 to 4 depth guys that they got, Nick Waugh, Dakota Joshua, and Michelli, make them a more formidable team come playoff time. Just when you objectively look at Marner's playoff production compared to maybe getting some more physical grit and guys that produce in the playoffs relative to their expectations. Yeah, I think that the Leafs might have a better chance. You weren't going to run back the exact same team. Would I pick them to win the Stanley Cup? No, because of course they're going to have to deal with the Florida Panthers most likely in the first or second round. But yeah, I think that there's still, if they figure it out in the regular season, get some chemistry, they're a legit threat come playoff time just because they no longer have kind of a smaller guy that's not exactly built for the playoffs. They're a lot more deeper heading into next season. Next up, we got this from Jackson Corrigan. Gunther, 45 goals. And yeah, I think that this is very, very possible considering the fact that right now Gunther's slated to play alongside Logan Cooley and Clayton Keller. That would be a special, special line. And this guy, last year he had I think 27 goals in 71 games in his half season in the NHL. He was going at 33 goal pace. He's just been a goal-scoring machine at every single level for the most part, and he has one of the best shots already in the NHL. So if that power play just absolutely cooks, I mentioned it in my Western Conference preview, and I think also when I was talking about Clayton Keller leading them, the Utah Mammoth were 8th in terms of 5-on-5 expected goals per 60, but 21st in actual goals. No, that was all situations. So even last year, they were still a pretty good offensive team, but there's even more room to grow in terms of just getting more luck. And also, they're a young team. Gunther and Cooley will only be better next season. Moving up, Vaughn SK, Elias Pettersson, 90 points in top 5 in Selke voting. And yeah, if Vancouver wants to potentially overthrow the LA Kings for that third divisional spot, they're going to need Pettersson to be at least 80 points. Now, in looking at it, he has just not been the same player since February of 2024. The splits between that stretch of 2022 to 2024, I think it's something 176 points, because I'm looking at it for an X Factors video. 176 points, 134 games. And then since then, he has something 62 points in 92 games. So if he's 100%, he says that he's fully healthy, but we have heard that before from players coming into training camp, and then shortly after, they're yet again battling with these nagging injuries. But if he is healthy, that is more than possible, considering that's what he did in 2023 and 2024, at least the first 2/3 of 2024. So yeah, Pettersson is going to have to step up, or else Vancouver is going to have a bottom 5 forward core in the entire NHL probably next season. It really starts and ends with how Elias Pettersson plays next season. Greg Malat, Habs regress. Luckiest team last season and did nothing to help the defensive side / goalie. And yeah, when looking at Montreal, I don't know how to view this team right now, because last year they did make the playoffs. They were amazing in the final half, 2/3 of the season. But when you look at the underlying numbers, it is definitely concerning. And although Noah Dobson's a very good ad, I don't know how much on the defensive end he helps that much. Ivan Demidov is definitely going to be a fun player offensively. So yeah, I think people that are just assuming that they're going to build off that 91-point season and take another step because of Dobson and Demidov and go to 100 points, I think that might be a little bit bold. I view them kind of as an 85-point team last year, and then they might take another jump, 8 to 10 points to get into the mid-90s and make the playoffs. In terms of goalie, Sam Montembeault, the last 2 years has kind of proved himself as an above-average starter. So although I maybe don't love their backup situation, Dobish, it was solid. It was really good at the start. But I think defensively, they'll still be below average, but the offense of adding a Noah Dobson, of adding an Ivan Demidov is going to make them a real threat offensively. And Montembeault has proven that he can play 50-plus games and handle it pretty well. So yeah, the Habs, not some kind of safe Atlantic Division team, but should yet again be in the wild card hunt. Also, last year was a very weak last wild card spot race in the Eastern Conference. Broth CA says Skinner bounces back now that he's 25 pounds lighter. And yeah, he came in at 230 pounds the year prior and now is 205. Skinner, I think people are kind of sleeping on him just because the playoff performances, obviously, but he has been solid in regular seasons. In 2023, the guy was the goddamn Calder runner-up. In 2024, he started off slow, but he had something like a 9-10 the final 2/3, 3/4 of the season. So yeah, Skinner, I think, is going to be solid this year. I don't think he's going to be in the 895s, and maybe being lighter will have a lot to do with that. But I'm going to expect a 905 in 50 games from Stuart Skinner this season. In the playoffs, will probably be as erratic as normal. But I think in the regular season, at least, we'll get a little bit more of a consistent Stuart Skinner. 230 pounds. Goddamn, Stu. Next up, we got no GMs or coaching firings until next season from Zach McKenna. GM firings, I could definitely see. I don't have the stats on me, but I'd be shocked if there's ever been a regular season like of the post 1990 where a coach was not fired mid-season. That would be crazy. I would put the over-under at 2.5. I think last year was like 4 or 5 were fired during the middle of the season. Like someone is going to fire someone after the first month or two after a slow start, justifiably or not. Maybe it's a team that we all think is not good and their coach just gets off to a slow start and they try to change something. The coach is just the easiest thing. You're not going to pull off some blockbuster move a month, 2 months into the season to change things up. You fire the coach, you see how it goes. But I could definitely see if you were like under 2 coaches, if you set the line at 1.5 and you said only 1 coach, I could see that. There's going to be some coaching firings. It's a hot take. I got to give you props on that. But in my opinion, I just cannot see that happening. Next up, Lud Briere. Bedard stays in 60 to 65 point range, and his exceptional status is no longer true. And yeah, for Bedard this season, even though he did not get that much winger help this offseason, I think he has to go for like 70, 75. If he puts up at least 70 with Tyler Bertuzzi and Teuvo Teravainen as his main wingers, I'm still going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, if he has yet another 60 to 65 point season, because that first season was 61 points in 68 games. Last year was 67 and 82. So yeah, he needs to get back into the 70-point pace around then, or else I agree. If he just goes for 60 points and he doesn't have amazing analytics or anything, doesn't take steps in terms of face-offs, in terms of defensive, then yeah, I feel like that exceptional generational status will kind of be revoked at this point. Next up, and sorry if I get this name wrong, we got this from Marnie on deck. Sens should be favorites to win the Atlantic if Ullmark stays healthy. And yeah, this is definitely a hot take. I would take the Florida Panthers, Tampa Bay Lightning, or Toronto Maple Leafs to win the Atlantic, but it is possible because I feel like this Sens team still has a lot to prove, at least in the regular season, compared to maybe those 3 teams. Don't really give a crap that much about the regular season at this point. Toronto's got to figure out life post Mitch Marner. Tampa is getting up there in age and just wants to conserve to the playoffs. Florida last year was only like a 98-point team. They really didn't care that much about the regular season. So if it is definitely possible. And the Sens last year, despite Ullmark missing a month, granted Merlainen had like a 921 in his absence, was fantastic. Yeah, they were a safe playoff team. And I think this season, I could see them getting to like 105 points after adding guys like Jordan Spence, internal growth from guys like Jake Sanderson, Tim Stützle, Ridley Gregg. Full season of Dylan Cousins could be really nice for the Ottawa Senators. And if Merlainen is a legit backup to Ullmark compared to what the Sens have had to deal with in terms of goaltenders in prior seasons, yeah, they could get, I'm not sure they have 110 point potential, but 105. And then those 3 other teams that I mentioned kind of struggling, not really struggling, but just not really caring that much. It's definitely feasible for the Sens to potentially win the Atlantic Division. Gligati 16. Sorokin wins the Vezina by a mile and finishes second in Hart voting. Takes the Islanders to the conference finals. And yeah, if Sorokin somehow gets the Islanders to the playoffs, which I do not expect to happen, he definitely should get some Hart votes. He definitely probably should win the Vezina Trophy. His defense in front of him is going to be brutal. As much as I think Matthew Schaefer is going to be able to handle NHL minutes, then you got like Romanov, Tony D ain't going to do him any favors. Pelican Palak ain't Pelican Palak from 2021. So yeah, I guess Sorokin could just put the team on his back. In 2023, he had like a 924 in 62 games and took them to the playoffs. That team wasn't as bad as the team right now. But yeah, if he makes the playoffs, if they make the playoffs, he should probably finish top 5 in Hart voting. But I want them to stink and I want them to get a high draft pick. Don't get me wrong. And next up, Sean B. 17. Olympics will be a lot worse than 4 nations because of the time change. I know this isn't NHL, but yeah, I kind of want to talk about it. It is going to be very unfortunate. Guess when the gold medal game is? That's 7 a.m. Eastern, 7 or 8 a.m. Eastern, like 5 a.m. Pacific. So yeah, it's going to be, I'm obviously jacked up for the Olympics, but I do kind of get what he's saying with this. The 4 nations really was the perfect blend, especially with the political aspect, as much as I did not like that from the USA's perspective. It was a perfect storm in terms of geopolitical, in terms of it being in the United States and Canada. I think the Olympics are going to be awesome. We just got to adjust for 2 weeks, wake up early as shit, because those games are going to be very, very early. I think there's like a 7 or 8 hour difference between North America and in Italy. If you're on the West Coast, you're really screwed. But yeah, it's gonna be better just because there's more teams though. The Four Nations face-off, as fun as it was, the fact there's just a round robin with 4 teams kind of took away some intrigue. I know if the United States won, I'd probably be saying the opposite. But there's still more on the line when it comes to an Olympic gold versus the Four Nations. But I do get what you're saying with the time change, and also the Four Nations being the first event in 9 years versus the Olympics now a year later. Although the Olympics are a bigger stage, Four Nations really, really was special in the NHL. Knock that one out of the park. Next up, Cedric84. Mammoth make the Western Conference Finals. And yeah, if Dylan Guenther's scoring 45 goals like we talked about before, it is possible. I would say very, very unlikely, though, just considering the fact that we've seen it kind of with the New Jersey Devils in 2023, even when they had their breakout. They are kind of a smaller, more skilled team first time in the playoffs, and the Carolina Hurricanes kind of make quick work out of them. I think they'll be very good in the regular season, but a team like that might get sucker punched in the first or second round, just adapting to playoff hockey, if that makes sense. Like Clayton Keller has barely played any playoff hockey. He played in 2020, the bubble. Yeah, it's going to be, I don't see them going far just because they seem like a team that's going to need adjustment. And just in general, first-time playoff teams usually don't go on that big of runs. Next up, Ben McCox. Ovechkin regresses to under 25 goals. Now, I don't think Ovechkin's, what do you have, 44 in like 69 games last year. Don't expect that to happen. I think he's going to be in the 30s. 25, though, this guy's just a machine. He has just been as consistent as it gets. I also get what you're saying. Maybe potentially, like, not the goal record is in the books, but I think he kind of wants to, although he might retire at the end of the season. I think he wants to get to like 940, 950. And if he plans on playing another season, 1,000 is not absolutely ridiculous. So in looking at it, I think that a lot of that power play is still going to run through Ovechkin. He's going to get to, if he's healthy, again, if he gets hurt, this goes out the window. But if he's healthy, I'd set the floor at like 29 goals for Ovechkin. The rest of his game might completely fall off, but he still has a fucking elite shot. Next up, read low. Quinn Hughes doesn't finish the calendar year as a Canuck. If you mean 2025, I'm going to pretty vehemently disagree with you. I don't see the Devils pulling off some Godfather package in the next like 2 to 3 months to land Quinn Hughes. If you mean 2026, yeah, that's really feasible. Next offseason, if the Canucks front office gets kind of an indication that Quinn Hughes doesn't want to re-sign with Vancouver Canucks, rightfully so, they should probably trade him next summer instead of going into next season and trading him at the deadline. Just try to trade him in the offseason and get as much as possible. So 2026 calendar year, I'd say 37%. 2025 calendar year, I'd say 2 to 3%. I don't really see that happening. I think Vancouver's going to at least see what they have this season, and they're going to try to make the playoffs. And if they make the playoffs, that definitely increases Quinn Hughes' chances of re-signing. Next up, we got this from Graham Berry 99. Necas is traded at the deadline, and I'm not gonna lie, that'd be freaking hilarious. After they traded Mikko Rantanen because they couldn't get a deal done, then they trade Martin Necas the following year, the guy that they got in the Rantanen deal. Yeah, from all the reports that I've seen, Necas just wants the money, man. Rightfully so, because he hasn't really made that much money in his NHL career. I think his first deal was a 2x3, then like a 2x6 or 2x6.5 that he's on right now. So he wants to swallow as much money as possible. And maybe there's a Seattle Kraken is always a team that I give as an example. It's going to overpay him. A 7-year deal at $11 million in free agency versus rightfully so. Colorado doesn't want to give him that. So that's definitely something to monitor. It seems like he is about the dollar than say winning at this point, and different strokes for different folks get the bag. But yeah, I'd say that there's like a 23% chance of this happening. This is not some insanely hot take at this point. Next up, we got this from Country0001. Sens, I assume that he means, miss the playoffs and get first overall, but have to give up the pick, which makes McKenna go second overall. And yeah, I kind of forgot about this the last couple of months, how the Senators don't have their 2026 first. It's not owned by anybody. The league just took it away because of the Donov trade. They opted to instead keep their 2025 first. Maybe they think that they could still get it back. The league can forgive them. But yeah, at this point, the Senators just don't have a first round pick next year. And maybe that's more of an inclination to kind of go for it this season. But yeah, that'd be hilarious if McKenna ends up going second overall, because if you remember when the Coyotes got their first round pick in 2021 stripped away, that was supposed to be 11th overall. Speaking of the Senators, Boucher went 10th overall, then 12th was Cole Sillinger or something like that. But yeah, they don't have a first round pick, so that's definitely something to monitor with the Senators this season, and it affects their trade deadline. Next up, Kane Amada. Flames make the playoffs and Wolf takes the Vezina. And similarly to Sorokin, I expect their team's Dustin Wolf's team to stink next season. If he ends up making the playoffs, this is a decent Vezina shout. You guys had him as the 5th most likely guy, 2nd on your Dark Horse awards ballots. I assume that you guys had Hellebuck, Vasilevsky, and Shesterkin ahead of him. But yeah, Wolf is just relied on so much in Calgary. And when looking at the start of last season, they had like an even split going with Dan Bedard for the first 25 to 30 games for the most part. Like, he probably should have played high 50s games and probably would have been more so in the Vezina race. Obviously, Connor Hellebuck would have won it regardless. But yeah, this season, he'll probably take a jump in games. I'm still of the belief that Calgary just won't be that good of a team, even though they were decent last year, that I think that Wolf might have a little bit of a sophomore slump. He'll probably still have very good analytics, but might drop down to low 900s instead of a 910 like he was last season, but not an insane take. We got a take on the flip side of the Mammoth making the Western Conference Finals from Vink LBCQ. Mammoth suck balls. Pretty vulgar. And yeah, I think the Mammoth are definitely, I'm betting on the high ceiling, but they also have a very, very low floor considering they haven't made the playoffs yet. They are kind of an undersized team. The goaltending, Vejmelka was very good last season, but has been very erratic throughout the year, and I don't have that much trust in Capo Kakinen behind him, as well as the fact that their defense core has been a little bit injury prone. Thursday and Marino were out last year. Sergachev has previously broken his leg. So there's some major concerns with the Utah Mammoth. They don't have the floor of a St. Louis Blues. They don't have the floor of a Winnipeg Jets. But I still think that the ceiling is so there. Adding a guy like JJ Peterka will really make them an interesting team. But I agree they could potentially be like a 2023, 2024 Ottawa Senators where the hype is there, but the results are not quite there to follow. Next up, Arcand says Demidov is the first rookie since Barzal to go point per game. And yeah, I guess if he's thrown on that top line with Nick Suzuki, it is possible. I think the expectation is they're going to keep Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield together. But if he's with a guy like Nick Suzuki, I assume he's going to be on the top power play. Then I could see point per game. Like, Matt Barzal was just special that year, and especially with him, the playmaking was off the charts. I think he finished with 65 assists. I don't know if I would expect that from Demidov, but it is possible considering Montreal is going to be very, very good offensively. In the back half of last season, they were electric. They could easily have a top 6 to 7 power play in the NHL, and Demidov definitely has a skill to get it done. I'd probably set his points over under at 69, 70 points or something like that. But hey, I like the boldness. It's funny, the Canadians didn't have a point per game player since, Sako Koivu back in 2007. And now they're saying our rookie are going to score a point per game. But yeah, it's definitely possible to a degree. Next up, Cadbury Mini Egg says the Oilers trade 97 and win the cup in a post 97 era. And yeah, this one, I think I'm just going to push back on, considering the fact that Draisaitl is basically the same age. If it was a situation where they had Draisaitl that was only 22, 23 years old and looking like the superstar, I could maybe understand moving off McDavid, getting younger, considering you lost in the Stanley Cup the last 2 years. But nah, if they trade McDavid at that point, you're kind of just giving up, especially considering the rest of their core is old as shit as well. You cannot spoil this. And whatever package you get from McDavid, it's probably going to be a star player, but then picks and prospects that won't really develop for 2 to 3 years. You just can't really replace a McDavid, especially a McDavid that is probably only going to take 16.5. If he was saying, and he's worth the max, don't get me wrong, but if he was saying I need a 3-year deal at $19 million, then I could maybe see a world where you move off him. But again, this team has made back-to-back Stanley Cups. Maybe next season, if they lose in the first round, again, you still should not trade McDavid. Unless he tells you I'm not re-signing, you do not trade Connor McDavid. Yes, they traded Wayne Gretzky, but that was after they won a bunch of Stanley Cups. And yeah, no McDavid trades. Get that out of here. Next up, also from Cadbury Mini Egg, I like this one as well. Shane Wright explodes and proves that he should have went first overall. We were talking about Lane Hudson before. We were talking about Logan Cooley. Those are the clear top 2 guys in 2022 redraft right now. Slavkovsky, I would also probably have ahead of Shane Wright. In order for after this season, Shane Wright to be ahead of those 2 guys, Cooley and Hudson, he's going to need 75, 80 points, considering the rookie year that Hudson just had at 66 points. Goalie had 65 points, 25 goals, 40 assists in 75 games. So Yeah, this is the hottest take of all time because Shane Wright's going to have to be like a point per game center on the Seattle Kraken in order to potentially pass those guys, just because those guys have been better since getting drafted without a doubt. But I do think Shane Wright has a strong case to third overall for a redraft. And considering the Kraken got him at fourth overall, pretty decent drafting there. Next up, Liam says, Leafs missed the playoffs. Atlantic teams like Ottawa and Montreal are on the rise, and the New York Rangers and Columbus could improve. And yeah, though it's weird, besides we talked about before, I think that their Stanley Cup chances go up with Mitch Marner no longer on the team, but I think their playoff chances, although I still have them making the playoffs pretty easily, their playoff chances probably go down a little bit in terms of making it, but we're talking about from 95% to like 88%. But yeah, in the regular season, they're going to have to figure some shit out. Austin Matthews not playing with Mitch Marner anymore, instead having like Matthias Michelli on his top line. It is definitely going to be an adjustment for this Toronto Maple Leafs team. And as a result, I could see a world where, again, we talked about it, Ottawa takes a step. Montreal, their defense is much better. And obviously those offensive additions, and they even pass the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, not saying it's likely. The New York Rangers are 2 years removed or a year removed from a 118-point season or whatever the hell they did when they won the President's Trophy. So yeah, there's definitely a chance that the Toronto Maple Leafs could miss the playoffs compared to even a decent increase compared to last season. And then lastly, we got this from Kurt B's Best Wetherick. Ike Howard gets sent to the minors. And yeah, I feel like people got to kind of temper their expectations with Ike Howard. When you look at the Hobey Baker winners, it's a prestigious award. You're not gonna be wrong. But when you look at the juniors and seniors that have won it at the college level, think of like an Adam Gaudette, think of like a Jimmy Vesey versus the upperclassmen versus lowerclassmen. I forget that. Upperclassmen is junior and senior. I'm trying to think lowerclassmen. Lowerclassmen will say freshmen and sophomores, where it's like Macklin Celebrini won it his freshman year. Adam Fantilli won it his freshman year. Cole Caulfield won it his sophomore year. McCarron his sophomore year. It is like night and day if you win it at 21 or 22 and 19 or 20. So yeah, I think just because he's a Hobey Baker winner, you got to lump him more so. I think he's going to be better than an Adam Gaudette, better than a Jimmy Vesey, but he's closer to those guys in terms of a prospect coming out of school compared to the amazing guys that won the Hobey Baker when they were freshmen or juniors. We're actually going to do one more. I slide to you. Ben Moraz. Ducks finished third in the Pacific unless the Kings land Kaprizov. And yeah, as I talked about before, I think the LA Kings are going to be a worse team. The Canucks got to figure it out with their forward core unless Elias Pettersson is fantastic. And as a result, the Anaheim Ducks could make the playoffs with like 90 points. I don't think that's ridiculous that the third Pacific team could be 90 points. Like I said it in the podcast, I hope for the sake of the NHL, I want the St. Louis Blues, Minnesota Wild, Winnipeg Jets to be like a 96-point team and miss the playoffs, and then have the third team in the Pacific Division be like 89, 90 points. So Gary Bettman just finally has to admit, we got to go back to 1v8. And yeah, I think the Anaheim Ducks are a decent sleeper team. Dosh Dahl's going to have to be great because that goalie tandem was the main reason why they took a jump from 59 to 80 points last year, but it is possible. I'm a little bit lower on the Ducks. I called the Ducks breakout last season. Now I'm kind of not off the bandwagon. I still love a guy like Leo Carlson. I think he's going to break out. Cutter Gauthier, but there still are some concerns with this team. But third place in the Pacific Division, which is just such an underwhelming division, definitely is possible. But let me know in the comments, what do you think about this one? This was a long video, but we just had so many hot takes that I really liked and wanted to go through. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Drop your hot takes below and I'll let you know what I think of it. I'll be seeing you next on. Peace.